As we celebrate Eau Claire turning 150 this week, Felicity Boss brings us another piece on the history of the city.
Today we'll tell you the legacy of the logging industry and its impacts we can still see today.
There are a lot of reasons Eau Claire became a hub for the Wisconsin logging industry. One of the reasons, the abundance of white pines. Another reason, the confluence of the Eau Claire and Chippewa rivers.
The way that the Eau Claire and the Chippewa rivers come together created a really unique area to be able to keep moving those logs out of the area. So it created like two giant highways into another giant highway.
Logging, the act of cutting down trees and sending them to sawmills to turn into usable wood, is something that Eau Claire did a lot of in the late 1800s.
Before Eau Claire became Eau Claire, three separate smaller towns that sort of grew up around logging, and they all sort of grew together.
Much of the logging was done in the winter, when they could use the snow and ice to easily move logs from the woods to the water, where in the spring they could float down the river to sawmills.
Here they have some of the trees that they chopped down. Typically these would be about 16 feet long. These ones are quite small. But this is kind of what their workspace would have looked like. They would have had the horse with them, they would have had the axes that they needed. And as you can see, it's in the dead of winter.
But as quickly as the logging industry took off, it also declined for an obvious reason.
We ran out of trees. So unlike modern logging practices, there was just no sustainability. So they just went in and they would just cut down everything that they could sell and then leave.
The effect logging had on Eau Claire can still be seen today. Places like Owen and Carson Parks were named for lumber barons. Also named for a lumber baron, the Shawtown neighborhood, which by the 1930s had been annexed into the city of Eau Claire.
Daniel Shaw owned the Daniel Shaw Lumber Company, which had a mill just off of Half Moon, and then had a lot of their support over in that Shawtown area. So they basically built their own city.
We can also see the influence of lumber's history in Eau Claire's Phoenix Park.
So the Phoenix Manufacturing Company was where Phoenix Park is now, and one of the main things they started making was these Phoenix log haulers. So you'll see they have this track system, and then they have sort of these skis on the front. And they were used to haul logs out of the woods. You can see how many logs they were able to take out. A team of horses could probably only take 8 to 12 logs out at a time. So this really increased the amount you could take out of the woods. But unfortunately, it came near the tail end of the logging industry, so it really wasn't as useful as it could have been. But they did adapt this track system into tanks in World War I.
But even as the logging industry died down at the end of the 19th century, a new industry, manufacturing, would seamlessly take its place. Reporting for Eau Claire's own News 18, I'm Felicity Boss.
The director of the Wisconsin Logging Museum says that legend has it Paul Bunyan and Bade the Blue Ox made a stop in Eau Claire on their way to Minnesota.
Now stick with News 18 all week as Felicity brings more stories about the history of Eau Claire as our city celebrates turning 150.
And if you're interested in attending an event related to Eau Claire's anniversary, the Chippewa Valley Museum will celebrate from noon to 2 this Saturday, featuring cake and samplings of local history.